think it's about time somebody said this, but I'm sure there are people who feel differently.
So why now? What was the impetus? What was the reason why you decided to put this to pen to paper now?
This has been boiling up for quite a while, McGraw, but I think that there's a real peril in letting Donald Trump redefine the Republican Party. He is the opposite of what Republicans have stood for throughout our history. And I think we have to make that very clear. And the longer this goes on and the more incidents of divisive things being said and done by Donald Trump, the greater the pressure within me, anyhow, to say something about it.
I want people can go and read the op-ed piece for themselves. But the general gist of it is you give him a pass on a lot of things. You say that we've had other politicians who have put themselves over party. We've had other politicians who have disagreed with certain parts of the platform. But your issue with Donald Trump is that he is trying to divide the country?
Yeah, my issue with that, really the piece was written for Republicans, to Republicans, about, what does our party stand for? And there are a lot of differences of opinion within the Republican Party on various policies, and that's the way politics is. But what is absolutely fundamental to our party and fundamental to our country is keeping America together, is one nation, indivisible. The first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, he was one who believed we were a union, we were one country. That's been the underlying principle of Republicans. So you can agree with various positions that Donald Trump has taken, and I think most Republicans would agree with some of the specific positions, maybe disagree with others, but agree with a lot of them. But beyond all that, so what's the basic point of the party? What's the principle of the party? What have we stood for 160 years? And we have stood for the basic principle of keeping the country together. And it's so important in America today, when there is so much fracturing and so much polarization, to have a unifying force in the country, a unifying party. And we Republicans have to be that, and we cannot let Donald Trump with his divisiveness redefine what we are.
I've talking to national media people. I've talked to current Washington Republicans, and they say things on the air that are different than what they say in private. They defend him in public, and they criticize him and pull their hair out in private. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I think that's true, and I understand that with people who are in elected office, and a lot of the people who are voting for them are people who voted for Trump. So I understand that, but I think that more fundamental than that is what's going to happen to our party. I mean, it's very important, at least I think it's very important, to have a strong Republican Party in America. And it's very important to have a strong conservative voice, which is the Republican Party in America. And to let that be changed, to let it be adulterated by this hatefulness, gives the impression to a lot of people, well, if this is what Trump is, this is what Republicans are, and it is not what Republicans are. It's the opposite of what Republicans have always been. And I think that it's essential now for us, for Republicans, to say, no, this does not define our party. This is not what we are. So I think it's time for more public disavowal of Donald Trump than we've had today.
There are people who are listening to this who will read your op-ed piece, Senator, in the Washington Post, and say, wait a minute, we had 50 primaries. We had a national election. He won fair and square. He won the party votes. I support him. I support the party. What are you talking about? You're the one who's out of step, not Donald Trump.
Well, I'm thinking of the entire history of the Republican Party from the beginning, from Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, the Bushes, Dwight Eisenhower for sure, and the people I've served with in the U.S. Senate, the people I've known, the kind of people I've known who are Republicans, they're not hateful people. They're not divisive people. They're not people who use every single opportunity to turn against one group and then the other, to say insulting things, to let it be known that other groups don't really belong within our country. They're not like that at all. So, I mean, sure, he was the Republican nominee. A lot of people voted against him in the primaries, too. I don't know what the percentage of the total primary vote that he got, but I'm sure it was under 50%. So most Republicans absolutely do not identify with the meanness and the divisiveness of this person.
Are you doing this on your own, or is this some type of concentrated effort with former Republican senators, current Republican senators? Is this part of a broader takedown of the current president?
No, it's all my own so far. But I mean, I certainly hope that I'm not one voice in the wilderness. I do believe that a lot of Republicans, I know this, I've already heard from some today, a lot of Republicans agree with what I said, but I think that we have to be more outspoken and more ready to say, okay, here's what our party is and here's what our party is not.
What should Republicans do? What's the next step if these?
Well, I think the next step is to be outspoken and to clearly differentiate ourselves from Trump and disassociate ourselves from him. I don't think there's, a single, say, act or vote or anything like that we take, but it's insistence. It's being ready to speak out and being proud of our party. I mean, this is a great party with a great tradition and an important role to play in America, and especially with where the Democrats are today, which is, increasingly to the left. So to have the Republican Party being alive and well is, I think, very important to the country. But if the Republican Party consists only of those people who say that they approve of Donald Trump, we'll never win anything. We won't last very long.
I listen and talk to Trump supporters every day here, and let me try and voice what they would say if they were here to ask you a question, and that is, we get it. He's a bull in the china closet. He's not the most polished politician. He doesn't know how to speak the language, but by golly, he's there fighting for me, and I'm going to support him because these Washington politicians had their chance. And look at the mess they've created. And so, okay, he's a little unpolished, but he's my guy, and he's speaking for me, and I sent him to Washington to break Washington.
Yeah, I think that's what they would say, and I understand that. I think that there are a lot of people, and there have been books written about this, people who feel that they've been left out, that they have been bullied by government, by the so-called establishment. They've been pushed around. And so they say, well, Donald Trump is a bully, but he's our bully. But there is something more important than all that. And that is, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, what do we pledge our allegiance to? It's the flag, but it's also the United States of America. It's one nation under God, indivisible. That's what we pledge our allegiance to. That's what America is. It's not just, hey, I feel hurt by what government has done to me or politicians. I understand all that. I'm not a great fan of a lot of what government has done either. But more important than that is we are this diverse country, and it's always been the great mission. I mean, always, from the writing of our Constitution. This is why the Constitution is the way it is. It's to hold together all sorts of different people with different ideas, with different political views, with different backgrounds and religions and races and so on. That is what America is. That's the way our Constitution was created. And now comes a president who should be the great uniter, the puller together of the country, and his whole method, his everyday objective is what can he do to be off-putting? What can he do to be divisive? And it's just plain wrong. And in my view, it's a matter of just what is America, what are we about, and how are we going to stand up for it? And how is the Republican Party going to be the Republican Party? Are we divisive? Is our party supposed to be divisive? Are we supposed to be hateful? Are we supposed to pick off one group after another and say, no, you're not really one of us, you're not really Americans? I don't think so. So I think this is a time of decision, and that's why I wrote the piece, and that's why I'm hopeful that other Republicans will be more outspoken.
Senator Danforth, our guest, talking about the op-ed piece that he wrote in the Washington Post. Have you heard it all from the White House or from the Trump administration yet?
No, but I'm not expecting to.
You're not.
So what? I mean, I don't want to hear from him. To tell you the truth, I don't think he's a Republican, and I think he's a very, very, very destructive person in our country.
Senator Danforth, you are always welcome here. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
Thanks, McGraw.
You got it. Have a good day.